Hi everyone, the sun is setting in like 20-ish minutes, so I'm gonna try to make this video happen with the natural light. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the books that I've been reading so far for Nonfiction November. I've read 5 so far, so first I'll go through the books that I've read in the order, and then I'll finish off with some new books that I've taken out from the library for Nonfiction November that weren't on my original TBR, but I think might end up happening, hopefully. The first one that I finished this month was Reading with Patrick by Michelle Kuo. Michelle Kuo decided to do Teach for America, which is a program that basically you go into areas that have a shortage of teachers or that need more assistance and you teach kids in that area. She did this in Helena, Arkansas, which is a poverty-stricken area, rural area, mostly black area, forgotten for the most part. There's not a lot of economic mobility, there's not a lot of jobs, and there's not really a way for people to leave either. She went there thinking with these ideas that education is the way out for everybody. I feel like that's a romantic notion that we have about education in this country, that with a great teacher and with a great education, you can do anything. She looked up to revolutionaries like Malcolm X, James Baldwin, Martin Luther King Jr. She wanted to make a difference like they did by actually going to these places and not just living the life that her parents wanted for her as a Harvard student and, probably going to law school, etc. When she finally gets to Helena and starts teaching there, it's on 2-year terms, she realizes that her entire belief system and all these romantic ideas that she had about what education can do for kids are really too simplistic, and that education is just one part of the big puzzle that all has to be complete for a student, for a child to succeed. That's kind of impossible when all these children are going through really difficult life traumas, dealing with poverty, and just all of these issues are making it that much more difficult for that student to succeed in school. So teachers aren't going to be the magical solution here. There are other institutional problems, and she sees this through one student named Patrick, who is very brilliant, and then after she leaves Teach for America, she is told that Patrick is actually in jail and facing a murder charge, and she comes back and reconnects with him and sees what happened, as well as gets to know his family and what his family and him are going through. I really felt like it related to me, and I felt like the things that she thought and the people that she looked up to are very similar to mine, and like my ideas about education as well. Last year I worked at an elementary school. The area where that school was at, it's an area that is majority black. It's an area that is at or below the poverty line, and is an area where the schools, I feel like, don't have the resources that they need. It was really eye-opening for me to be at that school with the first graders that I was with, because you think I'm there, I'm going to help them, teach them how to read, but you don't understand that the distractions that they feel are impeding them from getting the education that you're there to give them. There are so many distractions to them. It can be something like attention deficit. It can be something like hunger, like they don't have enough to eat at home. It can be even like coming to school not prepared, like forgetting their backpack, losing their backpack, wearing pants that don't fit them, wearing shirts that don't fit them. All of those things get in the way of what they're actually there for. I saw how Michelle Kuo saw it too, all the factors that she was facing that were kind of stopping her from accomplishing her romantic ideals about education. So this book made me really happy because I saw myself in Kuo and I saw myself in the way she saw the world, but it made me sad because it made clear to me that one person, one teacher, and education as a singular institution is not going to fix all of the other problems that exist and that are hurting a lot of children in America today. The writing is not perfect, I think. The emotions that you feel reading it and the connection that you'll feel reading it, if any of these issues are important to you, make it worth your while. The next book that I finished was Ta-Nehisi Coates' We Were 8 Years in Power. I listened to this one on audiobook. In this book we have essays by Coates that goes through the 8 years of the Obama presidency, discussing issues of the time and the politics of each year. Before each essay, Coates describes his thoughts that he had at the time and how his thoughts have evolved after that, as well as what was going on in his personal life and stuff about his family. My favorite thing about Coates is that he is very skeptical and he is very contemplative. He really likes to be as critical as possible about everything. Some people might say that he is very pessimistic about the world, and I've talked a little bit about this with Claire at Claire Reads Books. Really, he's just a skeptical person of the idea that America is progressing and we are going towards a more equal endpoint. Some things that I took away from this that I was not really anticipating is that he really sees a black conservatism in a lot of black leaders, and I found that really fascinating. From people like Bill Cosby in the first essay, This Is How We Lost to the White Man, to other essays about Obama, he sees a conservatism in how they want to like balance what white people expect of black people versus how black people just want to be. I never really thought of Obama as a conservative person, but it actually kind of makes sense with the upbringing that Obama had and how he really likes to balance as many sides as possible. My favorite essay, I think, is Why Do So Few Blacks Study the Civil War, which takes down a lot of Civil War myths, especially about it being a war about individual gallantry, about it being about what happens when you can't compromise as a nation, and I just thought that he took that all apart so well in a week when John Kelly was making some statements that make this essay very relevant. The next book that I read is Spinning, and this is a graphic memoir by Tillie Walden. This graphic memoir focuses on Walden growing up as a young girl and the time that she spent doing ice skating as a hobby. It had a really melancholy and mellow mood, and you can see that in the muted tones that kind of reminded me a little bit of This One Summer by Jillian and Mariko Tamaki. It was also very quiet and reserved, which I also really like for my graphic memoirs. The story, however, I think could have been a little bit stronger. It's a really long graphic memoir, so I expected more detail than I got and more introspection than I got. I thought that we stayed a lot on surface level, on things like what it's like moving from different states, making new friends, making enemies, and traveling with the team, instead of her understanding and expressing her sexuality to those around her, the trauma she faced when a person tried to attempt an assault on her, and also the fractured relationships that I felt like I got a little bit of about her and her parents. I feel like I would have wanted a lot more detail on those fronts because they seem like really important life experiences that inform her life, but it is worth your time, I think, and I am interested in seeing whatever else she comes out with. She's only 21, which is pretty bonkers. The next thing that I read after that was Hunger by Roxane Gay. This is actually my first Roxane Gay work. I was really excited about this because I've heard so much about her and I just didn't know much about her. I didn't know that she was Haitian American. I also didn't know that her dad is a successful civil engineer, or that she had what she calls lost years, where she kind of lost all contact with people that really cared for her and just like lived with partners that she had that she didn't know all that well. I really did enjoy and was interested in learning her thoughts about food, the shame that she felt and the isolation that she felt, the reasons why she never spoke of her rape to her parents even though she felt that her parents would be receptive of her. I thought that some of her experiences as a teenager were relatable, especially how her family would talk to her about her weight as she was starting to gain more weight. It kind of reminded me of the way that my Hispanic family talked to me about my weight when I was younger. The little things that people would tell me, like my stepmom. I also thought one specific part she talks about how she would tell herself often that tomorrow she would start new and like start eating healthy and start exercising as a young girl, and when that day would come she would kind of like wake up late or something would happen where she would have to like be running around, and so she would never actually start that healthy life. She would just say, okay, I'll do it the next day, and it's kind of this cycle of you telling yourself you're gonna be better the next day. I related to that. That's something that I felt too, and that's something that I would do when I was like 13 or 14 or 15, telling myself like I couldn't have any sweets and I couldn't have any junk food, I couldn't have any chips, and then when I would fail at that I would tell myself, okay, I'll just start tomorrow. I hadn't thought about that in a long time, and she reminded me of that. There are also experiences in here that are just important for us to know and to learn about if you are not a fat person. Like for example, when she would talk about what it's like for her to go on airplanes, the way that people around her would act towards her, how she would feel in chairs, how she would feel on armrests. These are things that as a non-fat person you never think about. It's great to hear more about those experiences. So I really enjoyed the content in this book, but I think what I didn't much enjoy was the style and the writing. It was very simple, the sentence structure, and I think I expected something different. I really thought that at times it was repetitive and we kind of went in the same circle. We came to the same conclusions over and over again. It's not chronological, so she kind of bounces back and forth through all of the chapters. The chapters are also really short. I was listening to it on audio on 2x speed, and the chapters would last like a minute and a half or 3 minutes, and then she would move on to the next chapter. Last but not least, last night I finished Columbine by by Dave Cullen. And in this book, I think the author does everything pretty much perfectly. On the one hand, we have the research and reporting, which is a feat in and of itself, with more than 20,000 police reports that he went through, all of the news articles, news media renditions of what occurred, 2,000 and more witnesses that were at the school or responded to the shooting, all of the documents and video recordings that the killers left themselves, as well as all of the contradictory witness testimony. So the book goes into the how and the why of the Columbine shooting. It goes into what really happened, what didn't happen, what are the myths and misconceptions that came out of it, mostly from the news media, as well as the suppression of information from the police. It also goes through all of this by following all the people that were really affected. In that way, it's also a feat of storytelling because it traces more than 10 years before Columbine, after Columbine happened, and what happened to all of the people that were affected, the victims, the survivors, the police, the parents. It did all of this, remaining super riveting, was really compulsively readable. And I also really enjoyed the epilogue that he included at the end. The epilogue discusses the legacy of Columbine and what it's meant to other school shootings, the inspiration and the copycats that have come because of Columbine, while dismantling all these ideas that the Columbine shooters succeeded. Basically everything that they attempted to do or wanted to do, which was like demolish the entire school, didn't happen. As well as his own thoughts about his own experiences and how he remembers Columbine, what he thinks of it. So I just overall love this book for how it balanced all of the facts, the myths, and explaining the truth, as well as making it emotionally impactful. I would definitely recommend it, and I think it's true that it is basically the Columbine document. It will explain everything to you that you need to know. So that is it for the reviews, what I've read so far part. Now as to what I'm currently reading, and then the new stuff that I got out from the library. I am currently reading Evicted by Matthew Desmond. I am about 75 pages in. I'm listening to it on audiobook, but I honestly think that I need to read the physical form because I keep getting distracted in the audiobook just because there's so many people to follow. I also last night started Sherman and Alexie's You Don't Have to Say You Love Me. I have like 7 days to finish this, so I'm gonna do this when I get off this video. I'm really enjoying this. I just love Sherman and Alexie's writing. As for what I got out from the library, woohoo! I got To Memory Reaped a while ago, I think like a week or so ago, because I had put it on hold and then it came in. I read the first like 5 pages this morning, and I just finished Salvage the Bone, so I want to keep reading Jesmyn Ward. And then the things that I got today at the library. The first one was one that I put on hold like 2 months ago. I put it on hold because of my Get Informed TBR. It just came in, and it is Claudia Rankine's Citizen. This is a mix of essays, poetry, photography about race in America. And then because I just finished Columbine, I looked up Sue Klebold's A Mother's Reckoning, trying to just trace what happened to her son, how he could become this person. I've been hearing good stuff about it. I was a little bit hesitant to pick it up, but the way that it sounds from other people, she really is grappling with what happened. Last thing I saw at the Tattered Cover bookstore in Denver, I finally went and I browsed around. I didn't buy anything because I didn't want to spend money, but I did find a book that I'd never heard of, and then I went to the library today and it was at the library, so I picked it up. And that is Lighter Than My Shadow by Katie Green, and this is supposedly looking at Katie Green's eating disorder. It's a hand-drawn story of struggle, recovery, and a trip into the black heart of a taboo illness. I have always been very fascinated and interested in learning more about eating disorders, and I also really love the art. It is a very big graphic novel too. I'm just excited to try this one out, and I will let you guys know what I think. So that is it for me. Those are the books that I've finished so far for Nonfiction November, and the ones that I want to get to by the end of the month. Probably some of them will roll over to December. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about these books, and if you've read any of these or want to read any of these, let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.